Hi, my name's Adam Kelsey from Tropo, and we're going to go through an overview of what Tropo is, what you would use it for, some code samples, and actually how to build some Tropo applications. Tropo is a hosted service for building communications applications, telephone applications. These are not applications that run on iOS or Android or on a phone screen. When we talk about an application here, we're actually talking about something that runs in the core telephone network. It runs over telephone calls, runs over SMS, and happens independent of whatever device you have. So desk phones, landlines, etc. can all use these. There's two different types of classes of application. The first is the user calls your application. You get a telephone number from Tropo. When somebody calls that number, your code runs. So your code is answering the telephone call and giving instructions on what to do over the telephone network. The other type of application is your application calling the user. So in this case, your application is kicked off by something and gives the call to a user. The user's phone rings, they answer it, and now they're speaking to your application. So as an example, here is a demo built using the San Francisco Bay Area's transit system API. And when we call this number, it's going to ask us what station we're at, and it will give us a list of the trains that are going to be at that station.
Welcome to the BART arrival time service. Please speak the name of a station.
Richmond.
The train from Richmond will arrive at Fremont in 1 minute, and in 15 minutes will arrive.
So there's an example of one of the things you can do with Tropo. Now what we've done with Tropo is we've taken the complex world of telephony and we've made it easy for web developers to understand. So we hide all of that complexity from you. We make it simple for you to write JavaScript, Ruby, PHP code and interact with a telephone call in a way that seems very friendly to a web developer without having to know anything about telephones or how the phone network works. What we do is we give you some basic building blocks to build a telephone call with. So you can ask questions, you can control the audio by saying things, by playing audio files in, you can record the call. You can also control the call by making a call going out, rejecting a call, transferring a call somewhere else, hanging up on it, or joining multiple calls together in a conference. Here's an example of a Tropo application. This is a very simple IVR, the kind of self-support system you might get when you call a company. So up there on the first line, we define a list of options. So here's our choices. We're going to allow somebody to choose 1 or sales, and that will return 1. And if they choose 2 or support, that's going to return the number 2 back to our application. Then a couple of lines down, we say ask, hi for sales, say sales or press 1. For support, say support or press 2. So this is going to take the call, it's going to convert it into text-to-speech, and it will play that back. Then if we get a result back, and that result is a choice, so basically if this was a successful action, we're going to get a choice back. We're going to look and see what that choice was. If it was 1, we'll say your money is important to us. If it was 2, which you'll get if somebody says support or presses the 2 button or says the number 2 on the phone, you'll get your call will be ignored in the orders received. So this is a very basic IVR built in PHP without having to understand how telephones work. So some of the use cases that you can build with this and what kind of things you can do with Tropo. Very popular one for the user calling application, calling in and interacting with an application is conferencing, connecting 2 or more people together. And that could be a full conference call. It can be things where you may only have 2 people involved or 3 people involved, but it's not a traditional conference call where everybody's trying to call and speak to each other. Surveys and voting are very popular. So the type of thing that you may see on TV where it says call this number to vote for this person, call this number to vote for this one, or polling where you're having people text in or call in to give their favorite. Voice search, a information assistance, directory assistance type of service where you call and ask, say, I'd like a restaurant and I'm in this area, and it returns back a list. Contact center, so your call centers for customer service, either building a full contact center system by building queuing and call queuing and such, or just building a simple IVR that front ends that contact center and connects people over to it. Self-service. Here's my order number. Please tell me what the status of my order is by text or by phone. For an application calling out to a user, some of the types of things you might do with that are appointment reminders, are a very obvious one. So your dentist office gives you a call, says you have an appointment tomorrow, make sure you come in. Or voice broadcast, where instead of calling an individual person and letting them know, you take the same message and you call a wide variety of people. Sports teams may use this to remind their players of practice. Schools might use this to let people know that the fundraiser is due, or there's no school today because of weather or something like that. Click to call is very popular. So rather than just having a telephone number on a web page where somebody has to pull out their phone, type in the number, dial it, maybe misdial it. Now I've dialed in, I'm talking to somebody, and I have to re-authenticate and let them know who I am. Do click to call, where I can just on the web page click a button, it calls me. It calls the store or the call center or a support agent or something like that, and already authenticates who I am. I'm already logged into your website, so it passes that information over to the agent, so they're able to handle that call right away and not have to have you go through and give your account number and all of that sort of thing again. And security verification, either for two-factor authentication. I use my credit card in a place that I don't normally use it, so I get a call from my bank asking me to validate this recent transaction, or validate that the phone number that I've entered is mine. If you're having people put in phone numbers to create an account or to register for an event, and you want to make sure that the phone number that they've given you is a real phone number and is correct, give them a quick call and display a code on the screen, have them enter that code when they get the call, so you know that really is them. So some real world use cases, things that people have actually built. So here is a small business IVR system that a customer of ours has built, and can't disclose the customer, so this is kind of an anonymized view, but there is a web page that a small business can go to. They can change their prompts that appear on the IVR. They can update their menu. They can decide where things go. They type it in. They hit update, and in real time, that's updated. So the very next call for a shop customer that calls into that IVR gets the text. This allows small businesses. You're a restaurant and you want to update that we're closed today, or we have special hours today, or here's our special. And you can do that very easily just by going to a web page and updating it. A company called Maya Number. What Maya Number is doing is they're taking the concept of having a single telephone number, especially designed for families and for children, where your children or a family only needs to memorize a single phone number for you, and it calls everybody that is associated with that number. So when a child calls that phone number, mom's cell phone rings, dad's office phone rings, grandma's house phone rings, all at the same time, so the child is able to reach anybody. And then they've built in workflows. During certain times of the day, you can have calls go to different places. You can have calls if mom doesn't answer, then forward to dad, and if dad doesn't answer, call a neighbor. And so these very complex workflows that can be built very simply by the user through the web, and have a single telephone number that's used by everybody. O-Power is a company that does smart grid and power management and demand management for power. So when somebody has a smart meter at their house or smart thermostats, they work with the utility companies to automatically give alerts to the customer. Your power usage is very high right now, and it's a heavy power day. We're experiencing blackouts. Turn down your air conditioning, or you're running your clothes dryer right now. You can get a discount on your bill if you turn that off and reduce your energy usage right now. And they do this through smartphone apps. They do this through email. And one of the things that they found was that not many people were installing the smartphone app for their utility company. and so they weren't getting those alerts. You may not be checking your email every 10 seconds, and so I might see my email that evening and says, "Oh, you should turn down your power and you'd get a discount today," and it's much too late. So instead, what they've done is they've added telephone to this, where they can call and SMS customers and let them know. And the results of this have been incredible. The utility companies that are using the voice and SMS alerts are seeing a great response to this package. A company called Speak to Leads builds a product that allows a web form that gets filled out where you want to have a sales rep call you. Maybe you're looking for auto insurance and you're filling out reps forms on auto insurance company websites. The typical workflow of that is you fill out the form, you hit send, that sends an email or a message off to a sales manager somewhere. That sales manager looks at it and classifies the lead and forwards it on to a salesperson. The salesperson gets around to contacting you, and it could be hours or even days before that phone call comes in. By the time that phone call comes in, I'm not in the mood to talk about auto insurance. I might be in the car or in a meeting or something like that. So the response rate can be very, very low on those types of leads. So what Speak to Leads does is they speed that response rate up to happen within seconds. And the way that they do this is when you hit submit, it immediately does some skills-based routing to find what you filled out, match you up with a sales agent that can help you with that, finds the next available agent, calls them. When that agent answers and responds that yes, they can accept that lead, it'll actually read the lead and the information to the agent before they accept. So when they say yes, I can accept that lead, then it will immediately place a call to the customer and connect the two of them together. And then they could do other things like conference in managers to be able to listen and hear what's going on, and other sorts of bits as well. And their results are incredible. 300% increase in conversion rates on these phone calls, and so they're doing all of this through Tropo. Ad tracking. There's the old adage that I know half of my advertising dollars are wasted. I just don't know which half. Web advertising has helped with that a lot because you can actually track which ads are effective, how they're being used, what's happening. But when you're doing ads out in the physical world, that could be a lot more difficult to track. You have a telephone number that you've put in a newspaper ad. You have a phone number that you're advertising on the radio. How do you know which one of those ads was actually effective? So what this system allows people to do is use a separate phone number, a unique phone number per channel. Maybe I'd use one phone number for all of my billboard advertising. I'd use another phone number for all of my radio advertising, or even use different phone numbers for different radio ads and do A/B testing among my radio ads. When the call comes in to that phone number, so a consumer picks up the phone, they call that number, it logs the fact that that call occurred, what channel it was, all of the information about that, just like click tracking would happen in web advertising, and then forwards that call onto the enterprise. Completely transparent to the customer. There's no obvious thing happening there that anything's happened as far as they know. They just called the company directly. And then the company is able to run reports and see which advertising is effective. Tropo applications are built using a variety of programming languages. We allow you to build in PHP, JavaScript, Ruby, Python, Groovy, or through HTTP over JSON, we can support just about any language you can get a web server to speak. Some of the examples of the code. Here is Hello World in 6 different languages in PHP, Ruby, Python, JavaScript, JSON over HTTP, and Groovy. And it simply says answer, say hello world, hang up. The answer and the hang up aren't necessary. Tropo will automatically answer if you do something on a call that needs to be answered, and they'll automatically hang up when your script is over. But they're shown here just to give you some idea of completeness. The way Tropo works, a call comes into your Tropo telephone number. In this case, it's country code 1-212-555-1212. I've bought that telephone number from Tropo. I call that. Tropo goes out and fetches my code. So it downloads my JavaScript code, my PHP code, whatever, from a web server. It could be your web server. We can host it for you. You can host it on our side. We fetch that code and we execute it inside the Tropo application, the Tropo runtime. In this case, the code says hello world. and then asks, who are you calling? And so Tropo speaks out with text-to-speech, hello world, who are you calling? And then waits. I say George. The Tropo application looks up, sees who George is, and then does a transfer to 415-555-8888, and that call gets transferred over to George. So now I am speaking to George directly through this. A transfer is just like forwarding a telephone call to somebody else. So let's do some examples here. Incoming calls, here's a couple of lines of code that will do something interesting. So we say, and we give it a URL. When Tropo sees a URL in a say, we're asking me to play audio. You're asking Tropo to play this audio file. Tropo will go out, will download that URL, and will play the audio file. Then line 2, we say, thanks for calling, and we just type that out. Tropo has a text-to-speech engine that will speak that. Tropo can do several different voices. There's a default voice, so you don't need to specify a voice, but if you'd like to change the voices, you can change them, and there's a list of names in our documentation. We support voices in several dozen languages and accents and dialects. We have, for example, in English, we have multiple male and female voices in US English, multiple male and female voices in UK English. We have a male and female in Australian English. I believe we've got Indian English. There's a bunch of different languages there that you can work with. Plus, you could say, type this out in, say, Spanish instead, and use a voice that speaks Spanish, or type it out in Mandarin and use a voice that speaks Mandarin. So here I've got the code typed in here that we just saw, and I am going to give it a call.
Tropo rocks.
Thanks for calling.
So the code, the first line, says a URL. It downloaded that MP3 file. The MP3 file consisted of a guitar riff, some drums, and then somebody saying Tropo rocks. And then thanks for calling using the voice Veronica. Now it's great, but simply playing audio files isn't always terribly interesting. So let's give some interactivity here. So here we're going to ask a question. Line 1, var result equals ask. So we're going to create an ask function. We're going to ask, what's your favorite color? Choose from red, blue, or green. And line 2 passes in the choices that can be said, red, blue, and green, or the choices that can be said using speech recognition. Whatever gets returned there, the ask function will return an object that we're going to stick in the result variable. And then line 4, we're going to say, you said result.value. So the value that comes back from that ask is going to be played there. All right, let's give that a try.
What's your favorite color? Choose from red, blue, or green.
Blue.
You said blue.
So line 1 there, we asked what's your favorite color, choose red, blue, or green. Define the choices. You heard me say blue. It responded, you said blue. And it used that using speech recognition. Just like the languages that we have lots of different voices in different languages, we have lots of different voices, dozens for speech recognition as well, ranging from lots of different dialects of Spanish, different English accents, a couple of Asian languages, a lot of European languages throughout that. Tropo can do more than just voice, though. It also can do text messaging. So when someone sends a text message to your application will start up, and instead of using text-to-speech to speak back, it will respond with the text that's in your application. So if I have an application that simply has one line that says, say, you asked about, and then current call.initial text, current call.initial text will contain the message that kicked off this application. So I can simply say, say you asked about current call.initial text. If I text in and say otters, I will get a response back from my Tropo application over SMS that says, you asked about otters. Sending SMS requires two parts. First, you'll need to put together a Tropo application, a script that runs on our server that instructs Tropo what to do. In this case, the script says message. Your doctor's appointment is at 3 p.m. We're going to send that to this telephone number, and we're going to send it over the SMS network. The second part of building an outgoing text messaging application, sending an SMS, is to have there's a HTTP, a REST API that you can use to kick off your code and instruct Tropo to run your code and execute your code. So that's https api.tropo.com/1.0/sessions. You can get or post to it. Here I'm showing a get just to make it a little simpler. So we're doing a GET request to that URL, and then we're passing a couple of query string variables. The first is token. Token equals, in this case, ABC1234. Action equals create. Action equals create tells Tropo you'd like to create a session that we're pretending to be a post even though it's a GET. Token equals ABC1234. The token is your API key for creating a Tropo call and for launching a Tropo session using this REST API. Over here in the Tropo application, when you scroll down, you'll see your phone numbers, and then here's your API keys and your voice and your messaging keys. So that's what the token is. It's one of these keys here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this application. I'm going to send myself a text message using this. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to use curl at the command line to make this request and send this over. So I send that, I get our HTTP response back, I get an XML document back that says the session was created, and that noise you just heard in the background was me receiving the text message that says your doctor appointment is at 3 p.m. So sending a text message like this isn't very exciting if I have to hard code the phone number and such into the message over and over again. Instead, what things that Tropo allows you to do is it allows you to use variables in your script. Any variable you use on the query string in the session API will turn into a global variable in your script. So on line 1, I say message, and instead of an actual text message to send, I'm using a variable called MSG, and then 2, instead of the phone number, I'm using a variable called 2. And then down in my REST API request, that GET request, I still have the token and action equals create on there, but I've added 2 query string variables. One is message, your doctor appointment is at 3 p.m. The other is 2, and then the phone number that we're dialing to. So the query string variable 2 will become the JavaScript variable 2 that gets used on line 2. The variable MSG will become, the query string variable MSG will become the JavaScript variable on line 1 there for MSG. And so this will allow me to request this session API hundreds or thousands of times, changing just the message and the 2 variable and having those change in my code. So let's give that a shot. Here from curl again, I'm going to make another request using the same token. And you can see the last 2 variables there. I have a message, hello world, and I have 2, and I have my phone number on there. So I make that request. I get an HTTP response back. I get session, and you just heard the text message sound go off again, and there's my message with the hello world on that. So that's Tropo in a nutshell. Some ideas of what you can use it for, how you'd use it, some code samples. You can look at our documentation at tropo.com/docs. We'll give you full documentation on all of the other things you can do. Everything from call recording to building voicemail, building conference call systems. We also have some full-featured sample applications. And our GitHub repo at github.com/tropo has a lot more sample code and open source projects that we've put on there. Our tech support is around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Email support@tropo.com or go to our support portal, support.tropo.com, to ask a question. We have IRC that you can ask live questions in, and we have actual developers sitting there staffing this, can answer all of your questions about how to use Tropo and what to do here. So have fun, build something, and we'll love to see what you've created.